the tales of the
I'm Jeremy Greer.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this is Days of Future Cast, the podcast where we have changed all of our personalities for 8 issues. That's just what we do. Called a midlife crisis for most people.
I'm much more edgy than I usually am.
Uh-huh.
And I'm wearing a really hideous mask, if you did not know. You can't hear it.
I eat mushrooms now. That's my
Okay.
thing. I just ate a mushroom the other
You're not
day.
a mushroom guy, eh?
Not a mushroom
You
guy,
like
but
mushrooms?
I just ate one, and it was like, oh, this isn't bad. Why haven't I been doing this? So that's my Corvette.
You know how so tastes are so fucking weird,
Mhm.
like literal taste, the sensation, because I think there's no way to describe like just if something tastes good versus something tastes bad to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Brayton also hates mushrooms.
Okay.
And I'm a mushroom fiend. I like mushrooms all day. For some reason, it is impossible for me to understand. At the same time, I have like 10 of those things. Like I don't like melon. I don't like cucumber. There's like all these things that just taste bad to me. But for some reason, I'm like, man, why don't you eat mushrooms? Mushrooms are good. It's just this weird like blind spot I have of not being able to understand how somebody could dislike this thing, whereas I have a million of those little quirks like that as well.
It's interesting what people do and don't eat. Like when I met Autumn, she was like, she wouldn't eat like tomatoes, like full stop, like on anything. And now she's a fiend for them, although she still doesn't eat raw tomatoes, which I can't really blame her for not eating raw tomatoes. I mean, I
don't like raw tomatoes either.
I love them, but like also like I can see why people wouldn't, right? Like I get it.
Yeah.
But for me, like I get the weird thing that I always get are people like, are like, really? Like, are beans. For whatever reason, and it's almost every single type of bean will make me physically gag. Like the idea of refried beans, I just don't understand. I don't like them. Like
Is it the texture?
It's definitely a texture thing. The only thing I can do are like really nice, crispy, like green beans, like a French green bean style. I can do those.
Okay.
But even then, I'm like, this is like, I would just prefer some asparagus. Like, why are we doing this? So I don't know. That's
interesting. Yeah.
That's been my big thing. And like when I say physically make me gag, like I will, because I've tried them so many times over the years, and I like physically my body does not want them. And I don't know what happened to me as a kid to make me, but like it's probably some trauma, right? Like that's the answer to everything. But
yeah. A bean killed your parents in Crime Alley.
Probably so. Yeah.
Beans don't taste like very much to me. Like I love them because they're a cheap source of fiber and protein. Like I do a lot of filler stuff with them, but they don't taste like a lot to me. So again, it's so fascinating. Like I would love to be able to just try on somebody else's senses.
That's my thing with mushrooms, is that they have a lot of texture for something without a lot of taste, and that really irritates me. Also, my problem with reality shows: a lot of texture, no taste.
No taste. Yeah, bad taste. Unless it's Gordon Ramsay disguising himself as paralysis demons to infiltrate restaurants. Which is my new YouTube obsession.
I love Gordon Ramsay yelling at people. I know like everybody does, but man, like we watched some of we went back through like the F word, the British version of his like go yell at people show, and it's so good. It's just I mean, he's so like, he's such a genuine dude that he's so genuine with his hatred and his love of things, and it's like an equal amount of energy for both, and I really, really appreciate that.
He's a real weirdo.
Yeah.
In ways that you don't necessarily expect. If you haven't watched any of them, go on YouTube and search Gordon Ramsay Hotel Hell costume or disguise, because he disguises himself to check out the restaurants, and it brings out his absolute weirdest personality traits. He loves to drive.
Yes.
Whenever he's taking the crew there, he wants to drive and gets a little pouty when he can't. Like at one point he was disguised as a cop with a bunch of cops, and the cops are like, he's like, I'm gonna drive, all right, big boy. And the cops like, no, you can't drive the police cruiser. And he's like, and like they left it on camera, just him being a little bit upset about it. He's disgusting. Like all of his jokes are all like, ugh, this is undercooked beef. This is like something you'd find in my grandfather's diaper. Like he's constantly saying disgusting shit like that.
Stuff, man.
Yeah,
it's
really
good.
weird.
It's he's such a weird guy.
He's so weird. He can't, and he doesn't even try to disguise his accent. You know how like everybody can do an accent. Like if you were everybody could try to sound British.
Yes.
He's a British guy, and he has to order. He's like 2 sliders. Like he can barely hold his accent down. It's so fucking fun to watch. They're so weird.
I feel a great
the whole
kinship
episode
with
of the
that.
show. I don't know, but
I feel a great kinship with that because like anytime I try to do an accent, I just invariably like it goes through like 4 different accents, and then I wind up on something totally the opposite. So like I really appreciate someone who just has no talent for that, like me. Like I look at what Bill Hader can do, and I'm like, you're a fucking weirdo. I don't know how you do this.
Yeah.
So
it is fun to watch him try though.
yes, absolutely.
We're talking about X-Men Legacy 245.
Yes,
right?
X-Men Legacy 245, Age of X Chapter 1. We covered the first issue of this, the introductory issue to Age of X and Age of X Alpha in the last episode. This is like our first like kind of main jump in. And our cover is kind of just like, hey, here's a bunch of X-Men all looking at the screen and they're ready to fight. And they're all weird looking. I think it's important, like, I don't do my local comic book shop closed, but also I don't do a lot of local comic book shopping. Like most of my comics reading is via Marvel Unlimited nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine if I was like looking through comic books at the store and I saw this, I'd be like, what the fuck is happening in X-Men right now? Like, what is Cyclops wearing?
Yeah. It's a cool looking crew other than Cyclops' mask,
yes.
I think. Like it's a cool looking redesign. Art is by Clayton Mann. If I recall, got his big breakout doing the original X-Force relaunch, and was kind of an it artist during this time. I enjoy the art in this just fine.
Yeah, that's great.
I remember people losing it for Clayton Mann.
I mean,
at the time.
I think it's great. Like I don't know that's lose
Interiors,
my mind about,
the,
but
the cover is Linnell Yu,
Mhm.
who we've talked about before, or Linnell Yu.
And we're gonna start out pretty much where we left off, which is a bunch of X-Men fighting something. We don't really even know what, but what we do know is the X-Men are in Fortress X, that Magneto has created to house all of these mutants that are being persecuted by basically everybody else in the world. This is narrated. We're going to have this overarching narration from like a green text box. This is going to be from Legacy, aka Rogue, but she is known as Legacy for reasons that I think are extremely cool and like almost poignant. Like I think that's when we get into this, we'll talk about it a lot. But she's going to be kind of narrating, even though we don't know this is her yet. Like like this is going to be like who is actually talking while all of these people are fighting.
Yeah, they're fighting like an army.
Yes.
They're fighting like the military, fighting Hulk targets. This is not something the X-Men usually fight. And the idea here, like they start out, this is day 1000. We do this every day. Like this is a nonstop war. And we're getting lots of cool, good action here as they're fighting these military kind of bots and tanks and shit. Cyclops and Cannonball are kind of at odds because Cyclops' leader instincts versus Cannonball's official leader position here are kind of at odds together. They're sparring as they go through. They find out that this attack was actually a feint. They were only sending their worst recruits at the side to draw people away from their real attack.
And one of the things we're going to see them fight about is this panel at the bottom of the first page where Cyclops is like letting rip on a tank, but one of the X-Men is right there, right? Like she is in the line of fire, which is very dangerous, so she could be killed. And yeah, like we find out like they tap into I love the idea of like comm worms, like worm me into something. Like somebody was having a good time with the language of this, just inventing a bunch of weird shit, and I'm kind of here for it. Worm me in, bro. Worm me in, Gary.
Love it. I love to be wormed. So they talk about this. They're gonna send another squad over to this other person, and then it's gonna be Sam's call here. Sam sends Tempo's squad over there.
Yes.
To this tank. They head over to this tank, and one of the first hints of this is silly. The military guys are ludicrous cartoons.
Yeah.
Like,
eat it, you beauty filthy. Eat it by the bucketful.
Yeah, Fortress X, here we come. This is a child's idea of the military fighting the X-Men.
Yes. And it's like it's also like a child's idea of like the tank itself, right? Like this is a huge,
it's
like
huge.
This is something like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles
from Star Fox
set would come with, and you'd be like, "What? Why are we fighting this?"
It's big enough to house many Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yes, absolutely.
We see Tempo's squad here. Tempo, a member of the Mutant Liberation Front.
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought was very cool. Has super cool like time powers. I've always liked. In her squad, we got Gambit. we got Frenzy, who's there. And then another person who I'm not exactly sure who this is supposed to be.
Yeah.
One of the New Mutants, I'm sure. They head over and Tempo's in charge of the squad, and they start fucking up this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's then somebody comes in with wings. That's Nightmare, who is this version of Pixie.
Yes, that's the purple. That's the purple chick. I was going to mention that when you got to a stopping point. I just the wings really threw me off for a bit, but then I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like she's opposite X-Men, right? So
the only reason why I know it is because of the epilogue to this, when everyone's doing therapy and stuff when they get out of this reality.
I hate to take us back to a tangent, but what do you think Gordon Ramsay's superpower would be if he was in the X-Men?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. Like obviously it would be something that he just does, but that's not a superpower. I don't really care what his power is. I just want that personality in the mix.
Yeah, I guess like somebody needs to take his brain and just put it in Professor Xavier. Like I want him to be the leader of the X-Men, right?
Oh my God,
and just be yelling at people constantly. Like somebody write that. Somebody please do that.
An edit of X-Men #1 with Gordon Ramsay as Professor X. So it's all like, I need it in 15 seconds. No excuses. Fucking hell.
Do you know what? Do you know what Frog? What is the horrible line from Storm? Like, do you know how a frog dies from lightning?
What happens when a frog hits lightning?
I don't care.
It's just like, I don't fucking care, big boy.
Big boy.
Yeah. But they win. They're beating the shit out of this tank. Cypher Locke, like Doug Locke, is part of their team, which I love. Comes in, Cypher mixed with Warlock, makes his way into the tank. Kind of comes out of the tech.
I love his.
Cool looking.
I love this design too of like him. It's almost like liquid, like yellow stuff coming out from him and like going into their mouths, and it looks like one of them's getting in the dick too, which is a bummer for that guy.
Yeah.
Super bad that you got Cypher in the dick, homie. Sorry about your life, bro.
Yeah. Too bad. I ain't reading all that though. As this happens, they kill the tank here. As the other team makes upon it. Gets there. Again, they're fighting. Scott and Sam, are fighting about leadership and everything. It turns out though they were distracted. They noticed that Tempo got really hurt in the fracas.
Yeah.
And she's dying. Sam calls in for Reaper. To make things more confusing, Rogue is also known as Reaper.
Yeah, Reaper, Legacy,
Rogue,
and Rogue.
Reaper, Legacy.
And she says immediately, like, they've got this like talking AI that they call X. We don't really know where that's coming from or anything, but it's like a kind of a central command system that people are using. And she asked the command, like, did he call me Legacy? And the command's like, no, they refer to you as Reaper. It's like, I hate that name. And she goes to Tempo and like basically tells everybody, like, get out of here. I'm going to take care of it from now. And she tells Tempo to like let it go, basically using her powers to kind of absorb Tempo's memories as well as her powers. And she says, like, you won't ever be forgotten. Not a moment of your life is ever going to be lost. And this is such a interesting way to interpret Rogue's powers, as like this kind of infinite archive.
Repository.
I
like
love
an archive.
This. What a great, and I know they're playing, I know like in the future Hitman's going to do some of this stuff with Krakoa and the Hoxpox era, right? Like that some of this stuff is going to come back. But just like right here, it's such a personal touch too. Like it feels like Rogue, and there's also like this element of sacrifice to it too that I think is really interesting, where Rogue has to endure this. Like Rogue's powers have never been easy for her. Like they've never been a situation where she's been able to just like, oh, this is great, I've absorbed Carol's powers and now I have all of her memories and this is great. Like that's never been the case. It's always been horrifying for her, and for her to do this for her species, I think is really powerful. I was really entranced with this idea when reading it.
It's real cool too. This is spoiler stuff, but after this all ends, she's going to keep this stuff. It made me want to read X-Men Legacy to see what happens with it.
Yeah,
with her keeping all of these memories.
Man, isn't that the best thing that that a crossover event could do? Is like make you want to read more. Like what happened? I want to know more.
Yeah. It makes me when X-Men Legacy first came out, I read the first couple issues, but it was shortly before I got out of comics, so I never stuck with it. Outside of seeing it in some crossovers. But I like McCary. There's really no reason, and I love Rogue. There's really no reason for me not to spend more time with it.
Yeah, I read a bunch of this stuff when I was big into reading comics in the evening time, like before I would go to bed. And that's why I read this the first time a few years ago. Like I went through some of this stuff.
So she sucks up Tempo, That's what she does. And they're not going to make more mutants. They're in a hell world.
Mhm.
So every single life is very precious. Luckily, as they wrap this up, who should appear but the Force Warriors? And they put the walls back up.
Yes.
This is 5 telekinetics from the thing. It is hard to spot exactly who everyone is, but the main one is Legion.
Yes.
Legion is dressed up like a Right Said Fred.
Mm-hmm.
In this, he's got a mohawk instead of his ordinary silly hair, and he is a walking sex god.
Yeah, he's got his pants unbuttoned, Gary.
Yeah, like top button unbuttoned, like just easy access.
And that's definitely
got,
Avalanche next to him. You think?
No, that's a Psylocke. That's Julian. That's Hellion.
Oh,
next
okay.
to him.
Yeah.
A version of Phoenix, and then another person I'm not sure.
Yeah. Which we probably would recognize.
A version of Rachel Phoenix.
Yeah. And we alluded to this in the first episode, but like we cut over to the other team, the Tempo team, and they're like, "Yeehaw!" Like I would let him do some things. I would teach him a thing or two about irresistible force, like that kind of stuff. They're having a good time with this. And we go back to Rogue's narration of what the Force Warriors are doing. Like this is, they're creating these walls every single day to keep people out, to keep them safe, right? And it's and this is, I think, the first time that they mentioned the precursors, the baseline humans who hate us so much, right? Like that's the presumed enemy in all of this. And then the X command calls everybody back to the fortress, and Rogue's like, "No, I'm just gonna chill out here. Like I've got to deal with this stuff. Like these memories like are stressing me out, so I'm gonna do the thing out here. I'm just gonna chill."
It's setting up our situation here. So every single day is the same. These Force Warriors put up the shields. They last as long as they last, giving people time to rest, but they don't last forever.
Yes.
And then they have to fight them off until the Force Warriors can recharge. It is a perpetual war.
Yep.
We cut to Legion leaving. He's talking to Moira McTaggart there. And she's being very motherly of him, but he is adjusted well to this. It's an honor to be a Force Warrior.
Yeah.
I love this. Things are going to get more desperate, but I'm going to stay on top of it until it does.
Yeah. And she's worried about him, and he's like, "We're not even fighting. Like this is they're not willing to risk me." We cut over to the Rat Run because every X-Men comic book has to have a bar for people to go to blow off steam. And Wolverine is running the bar. This is why did I just blank?
It's Frenzy.
Frenzy. And Frenzy kind of is fucking with Wolverine a little bit, being like, you're here, so it doesn't matter that we lost somebody. Like as long as you're good here, right? Like pop those claws. And he's like, I would literally die if I do that. And he's like, yeah, come on, like, let me see it.
Yeah.
And he eventually just was like, why don't you just like drink yourself and forget all about all this stuff? That's what I try to do every day.
Yep. And who comes in? But Basilisk comes in, and we find out they're together. He's like, I thought I'd find you at home. She says, I'm going to need you to take that helmet off tonight. Wash this garbage off of me. They have a BDSM style relationship.
Yes.
There. I love this small running sub theme of Cyclops' lovers and taking off the helmet. In New X-Men, it happens. Jean Grey, he takes off his helmet or takes off his visor, and Jean Grey holds him back. In X-Men, Phoenix End Song,
Mm-hmm.
I think. Emma Frost tries to do that. She's like, I'm Diamond, you can't hurt me. And he takes off the helmet and it just ricochets everywhere.
Yes.
Like nobody gets hurt, but it's really ugly. It doesn't work. And then Frenzy, this lover, who is just strong enough to take it.
Yeah.
She's not going to reflect it. She's not going to hold it back. She's just going to absorb it because she's indestructible.
Yeah. I would need you to wash all this garbage off of me.
Yeah.
We go around the room to some this is classic X-Men blowing off steam, right? Asking Namor is playing cards with fucking Sam Guthrie.
Yeah.
A situation that will never ever occur ever again. And of course, like Colossus is in the room too.
Yeah.
And we get some just a little bit of just like kind of offhand comments of, what's it like living with the goddess? It's like, Aurora doesn't see herself that way. And of course, then we find out that Psylocke and Sam Guthrie are kind of in a relationship together. And we kind of just basically go around the room, and Gambit mentions like some past stuff of like what would have happened if we had all met earlier. And he's like, I don't think anything would have been different. Like the Phoenix would have still eaten Albany, which is an interesting way to express it. And like the Sapien League would have stolen the election. So getting kind of clues into the things that led into this universe.
Yeah. We cut back over to Rogue, who is talking to that AI X, who's trying to stop her. She's in this area that is dangerous. She shouldn't be here alone.
Yes.
Even
though it's behind the walls, like she's still
Yep.
in this area that they have deemed too dangerous for her to be in, which is another interesting kind of like look on this whole situation.
Yeah. The barrier while she's wandering around gets breached. Somebody comes in. She's going to, at first she feels like this is a threat, but it's obviously somebody who's very hurt. And then that person phases in. Phases, like they're holding an object, they phase it into another object.
Uh-oh.
Yep. We know who this is, but who shows up? But other X-Men.
Yes.
Show up to beat the shit out of them.
Yeah.
This person.
Turns out like they think this is an external threat, right? Like somebody snuck in.
Yes.
So they like try to run her down and hit her, and they just phase right through her. They take the mask off and they recognize her. Like she's one of us. And Magneto shows up and says, yes, she is one of us. This is Catherine Pride. She's one of the most dangerous mutants. So she's been deemed too dangerous to be able to out. She's, we keep her locked up. Like she was supposed to be inside. So this isn't an external threat. This is an internal threat. So this should not be happening.
And we have to keep this a secret. I'm going to take her. Morale is a fragile thing. A single word would break it.
Yeah.
And she takes her away, and this is obviously no good. This is spooky and
something
scary,
spooky's
and
happening. Absolutely.
Something bad's happening. Rogue Nose saw her put that camera inside this wrecked out car. She goes and retrieves the car, and she looks at the picture on the camera and says, "It's like I was bitten, infected."
Yes.
Here we're gonna find out what's on this camera, but it's a mystery. Setting up the mystery here.
Magneto takes Kitty back to Fortress X, presumably the bottom of Fortress X, where Danger runs a prison for dangerous mutants, which is a little on the nose. I feel like if I was a team of surviving X-Men, I think I would be concerned that there's like a concentration camp for mutants in my backyard. That seems like a thing that I would care about, but maybe people don't know. I don't know, or maybe like whatever is happening in this world has like eluded them to be able to think about this in those terms.
They know, but their brain has been rewritten to think it's okay.
Yeah.
Until it unravels.
This is dangerous territory, so much to the extent where she kind of tells Magneto, like, I'll take Kitty. And he's like, absolutely not. Like, I am the only one that's allowed to visit her. We have to find out how she escaped, what she went to, and what she saw. And, Danger always looks like she has something else going on. The most interesting part of this is Rogue being like, it took 1,000 days after the Humanist Coalition declared the X-Gen illegal. The whole world fell into line. 1,000 days after we threw up the barricades, like the day it all started to fall apart. So like as she's seeing this, Magneto is walking by all of the psychic mutants, and we've realized like we haven't seen a single telepathic mutant in this yet. Like where's the Emma Frost? Here are the Cuckoos. There's the floating Martha. from the new X-Men. And then in his own cell, quietly lit by one single spotlight, which seems rude, is Professor X sitting in a hospital bed. Lay in this bed while we shine a bright light on you for aesthetic purposes, please.
Like give him an eye mask. That's what I say.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're not having any psychics. So all of the psychics are being trapped. It's fascinating earlier when you said they were going to do stuff like this, similar to this in House of X. House of X owes tons to this.
Oh, yeah.
Like the current Krakoa age. With them, there have been advancements in that. I'm not current on it. I know that it's very similar though when they're in kind of a stable realm, but any precogs are kept out. I know it's revealed why. Don't spoil it for me, please, if you're listening. I do, intend to read all the Dawn of X stuff at some point. But that's very similar to this. This is kind of like a fast forward condensed version of Dawn of X stuff.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. And just the cracks are beginning to show. Like anything that looks, this is too bad to be true. It's a dystopia, not a utopia. But it's we're going to find out this is a utopia for one person.
And I just want to say, like, that's a good thing, right? Like Hoxpox being built on top of this stuff, this Krakoan era being on top of this stuff is classic X-Men. Like taking all of the stuff that the X-Men are and have done, even the weird Universal stuff, remixing those. That's what this is doing, and that's what that did. That is doing now, right? Like that's all of that stuff is very, very X-Men. That's why we love the X-Men so much, is because you can take these characters, mix them up, do crazy shit with them, and it still feels like X-Men, right? Like that's the big thing. So.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to finishing this. I'm very excited. Like it's a rough start if you don't know going in that you're not supposed to understand anything. And because they don't do any place setting or time setting at all, which I actually really appreciate reading this, because I think the last thing we talked about that Wolverine series where they were like 5 minutes ago, and I was like, what the fuck, dude, come on, stop. So having this just be like, you have to trust us is like, and them trusting the reader to come along that journey is refreshing.
It's confidence.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing whenever I see it, I really like it. We and Cole, just for Watch Out for Fireballs, covered The Order 1886, which by no means you have to play that game, but it sets you up in an alternate universe world and has almost no exposition.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're just able to pick up stuff through context, but characters don't explain things. And like the thing I admire about it is it's never talking to the player. The way this is set up by throwing you in the deep end like this, the characters are saying things to each other that mostly make sense. They're never being like, as you know, since this, it feels more lived in and natural. And that's very important to me. Awesome. I'd rather pick things up that way than just have somebody tell me the history or like read a codex.
Yeah. I want Gambit to pick up a playing card and flip it over and have like this playing card came from the age of Magneto. I want the Dark Souls notes version of the X-Men stuff. But also like having the dialogue be this, like glimpses into the history that we don't know, removes the other like bugbear that I think you and I have about comics, which is characters explaining their powers to one another for the 14th time. There's really none of that. Like we just see Gambit like shoving some bullets into a gun or like throwing cards and everything. Like he's not like, I'm going to kinetically charge up these cards, share. Like, there's none of that bullshit, and it feels really good.
You just put it together.
Yeah.
You just kind of figure it out, because it's not ultimately important.
Exactly. Yeah, none of that stuff
early
really
comics
matters.
It's cool, like it's candy. You and I like it because the idea of Gambit having a gun and charging up bullets and shooting them, I think is cool. But like the 12-year-old me thinks that's cool. The part of me that just like wants to read the story and cares about the characters knows that we don't need to spend time on that.
Yeah.
I can just figure that out in the margins. So,
and it's it's such an interesting place for comics to be at a certain time too, right? Because like as you were probably about to say, like in the past, you needed to have that. You had to explain who your characters were and what they do in every issue, because you couldn't guarantee that someone read the first 10 issues or the issue, even the issue directly before it. So like you kind of had to do that, versus this where there's enough established X-Men history and there's enough of a market for people who are just into X-Men shit where they could just go, fuck it, like we're going to throw those out. We're going to throw all those rules that we would normally do out, and just like they're going to have to come on this journey with us. And that's, like I said, refreshing in a way. So
yeah. Yep. Agreed. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you everybody for listening.
We appreciate you.
If you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and donate some money every month. In exchange, you will get access to the cool Slack server. You will get access to a bunch of exclusive content, all kinds of exclusive podcasts that Gary and Cole and the rest of the people on the network do. Just a literal fire hose of content. So please go check that out. And if you can't do that, then tell your friends, leave ratings and reviews, write the name of the podcast down and put it in a bottle, hopefully a biodegradable bottle, I guess. That's just littering now that I'm thinking about it.
You can put it in a bottle for your recycling guy.
There you go. Yeah, send it to your recycling guy via ocean. Yes. I'm gonna fed ocean this to you.
Yeah, it doesn't have to float. Just put it in a bottle and put it in your bin.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let the recycling guys sort it out. But tell them about the podcast. And we so appreciate everybody listening. We'll be back next week with more Age of X.